Hey all. Sometimes tech isn't our friend. I recorded this once already. and about 15 minutes. And I needed to do an update on my computer. Didn't know that. And it only recorded 1 second of 15 minutes. So, round two, here we go. Excuse my voice, might have to take a few swigs of Diet Coke to get through this one. But I want to tell you a story. So, it feels like we almost have more to do now, right? With this whole social distancing thing that's going on, it seems like we have more going on, more on our plates. Like, you got to put your lesson plans here, you got to put the missing work here, you got to contact this teacher, you got to do this at this time. And it's like, it's so different than what we've been doing for the past 6-7 months that it's like, dang, there's things that I always forget. And we were kind of talking yesterday during our team time about how there always seems to be something that we keep forgetting to do. Like for me, I forget to go on the shared document and put in what I'm teaching about, like put my objectives in for the week. I've always just had them on my board. Like, I don't think to go put them in this shared document that everybody in the school can see. Like, I don't think about that. So, anyways, we kind of talked about how we're feeling, a little burnt out and a little exhausted. And I'm like, yeah, I know I have a few things to do here and there that I didn't have to do before. And like, oh, whoopsie, I forgot that. It's not like it's going to come back and haunt me. But it did really get me thinking about teacher burnout and exhaustion and where that stems from for me personally. And it's not that I have it's not necessarily more I think that's on our plates. It's more that it's different and it just takes some getting used to. So I don't get my knickers in a twist about that. But what does really seem to weigh on me is this feeling of being always on. Like, I am always available to these students and parents. And now here's the deal. I always have been. It's not like email magically appeared once we had to do distance learning. It has always been there. But it seems that I am getting so much more communication outside of regular workday hours, because I'm sure that is when parents and their kiddos talk to each other, and then parents have questions. Or then they tell their kid, hey, you gotta ask about that. If you can't explain it to me, clearly you need to talk to your teacher. So it seems like, and by the way, I have gotten emails from kids at 1 a.m. And I'll respond to them the next day, and I'm like, why are you, I'll answer their question, da-da-da-da-da, and then at the very end of it, I say, by the way, why are you up at 1:30? You need to make sure you're getting good sleep. What are you doing? What are your children doing? I don't understand. They're so goofy. A side note, I teach middle schoolers too, so I'm sure they're definitely sneaking their time in on their devices, or maybe not using great use of their time during the day, but I get that parents gotta work. They're focused on their own stuff. They can't be hovering. So it's just what are you doing awake at 1 o'clock in the morning? Go to bed, kiddo. Go to bed. Anyways. But there it is. That feeling that I'm always on. I never got emails from kids that late / early, whichever way you want to look at that. And you feel like their emergency is your emergency. They have this question, you can provide a simple answer, but it's constant. And you think if you're okay, well, that's just 2 kids and 3 parents, but that's 5 emails that you're sending, and then that can start to snowball and really negatively affect you. So that's where my exhaustion and burnout is stemming from, is this feeling from always on. So if you're feeling that same way, then here are a few things that I have done that have really made a big difference for me. So you could try. The very first thing is to take breaks. And you're like, no duh. I actually had to schedule breaks. So I write down everything. I write down when I have my office hours. I write down when we have our whole group meetings. I write down when I have STEM Academy meetings. I write down when we have PLC. I write it all down. And so since I have my time so incredibly structured now, I also had to schedule in and structure my break time, or I wouldn't take one. And then it would come 2 o'clock and I'm laying on the floor and I can barely get up for supper time because I'm so done with the day. And it was funny because my significant other saw that I had written in yellow pen, noon to 2 o'clock break. And he's like, you have to write down your breaks? Why don't you just take one when you need one? Let's go. That's not how this works. Right? Like, we could work around the clock and never be 100% caught up. Never. Like, there's always something we could be doing, right? Always. So, after I laughed in his face, I explained that very same thing and said, it's just, if I don't schedule that, then I'll work through that time. And we don't have those natural interruptions anymore. We don't have the kids asking questions. We don't have the kids switching in and out of classes, the interactions in the hallways. We don't have that. Now, your kid bugging you during your Teams meeting, that's just annoying. That's not a natural, you know what I mean? Like, that's not our typical natural interruption that takes place and gives our brain like time to shut off and kind of take a little bit of its own natural break. We don't have that anymore. So it's like we are constantly going. So if you need to schedule a break, find that time and do it and be consistent with it. So I tend to take a break from noon to 2. And I know you're probably thinking like, that is 2 hours. How can she take 2 hours? Well, I work again at 2. And then I'll usually take another 2-hour break from about 4, maybe more like 5 to 7, 4 to 6-ish. And then I usually work again in the evening. And I was very strict with myself about working in the evenings. I really tried not to work after 6 o'clock. I really was focused on that during the school year. And when I was left school, all of that stuff just stayed there. So taking that big 2-hour chunk of time in the middle of the day, and I can sit outside on the deck and enjoy the sun and just close my eyes for a second or read my book. It's so enjoyable, and it gives my brain that time to shut off. And because I don't have these little natural breaks, I need to give myself a bigger chunk of time during the day to be able to come back refreshed and rejuvenated. The second thing that I've been really diligent about that I was horrible at before is I do not eat while I work. So when it is noon, I go out, make lunch, sit and enjoy it, and I do not work. So that noon to 2 break time, I have that chunk of time. It's pretty sacred right now because it also includes that eating time. I would really recommend making that either a part of your break time, or even if you only give yourself a half hour to eat lunch, or the typical 20 minutes that we're used to, then I would step away. Use that as another natural break time, even if it's a shorter break, that you allow yourself to do that. Don't eat while you work. Don't work while you eat. The third thing that I have been doing that has really helped get my brain around this like always being on is I make my to-do list for the entire week and I really spread it out. So I take a look at like Wednesdays, guys. Oh my gosh. Wednesdays are long days. We have lots of meetings on Wednesdays. And so because Wednesdays are always such long days, I really don't grade that day. That's usually like check on any missing work. like see if kids got in some of their late work. That would be about it. But I don't do like intense grading or things like that on Wednesdays. So looking at all of the meetings and then looking at the to-do list, what can I do on certain days where it's not going to become overwhelming for me? So I used to do things as a day-by-day basis, and now because we're pushing things out weekly and things are due on Sunday nights, and this week I'm looking at last week's stuff, and it's just kind of like got to get my head wrapped around it, so this week I am grading last week's stuff, I am prepping next week's stuff, but they are working on this week's stuff. It's mind-blowing. So instead of going with like a day-by-day to-do list, I'm looking at what do I have to tackle this week, so I can get all my stuff in order, so I make sure I'm covering my bases from last week and covering my bases for prep for next week, scheduling that and trickling it out throughout the week. So spread out your to-do list. The fourth thing, if your district isn't already requiring you to do this, I highly recommend it, is to schedule virtual office hours or virtual class time with your students where they optionally can hop on, and try to keep those consistent so they know, okay, well, I know that I can hop on her office hours from 3 to 4 or from 10 to 11. Our district is saying you have to have 2 hours of office hours of availability time for students to be able to interact virtually with you and see you. And that's been really nice because there's certain things that are a little bit challenging for some students still technology-wise, and so they're able to share their screen and I can walk them through step-by-step type of things. It's really nice. So that the office hours and the virtual class check-in times have really helped eliminate some of those like extra emails that happen later on. You get a few that trickle in, like none of this is 100% foolproof, but it does make things a little bit more manageable. And then my last trick, and I haven't done this because the other things that I have in place, the taking breaks, not working while I eat, spreading out my to-do list, and then having that scheduled office hour time that my students just know that's when I can access Miss Nelson whenever I need to. Those 4 things have really helped, but if it is still too much, shut off the notifications to your phone. That's a huge, huge thing, because we are always connected to these beasts, right? Like we can't get away from them. So because of that, it might be a really good idea to shut the notifications off on your phone, and you schedule like, okay, I know I'm probably going to come back and have 30 emails, but mentally prepare yourself for that. Be like, no, I'm going to take that 2-hour break from noon to 2, but from 2 to 4, that's email time. That is, I am on my email, I am responding to kids, I am responding to parents and admin and colleagues, like that's my time. And it's not selfish. You're a human being. You gotta take care of you and the people in your home. And I had said earlier that sometimes when kids like are emailing you or asking a question and a parent's like, please get back to us ASAP, it feels like their problem is your problem, their emergency is your emergency, and it's not. It's not. Their emergency is not your emergency. And sometimes you just need to shut that out and get back to them in the morning. I don't know how many emails that I haven't been sleeping very well. And so I notice the emails that are coming in at 10:30, but I'm not responding. I might be awake, but I'm not responding to you at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, because I'm not going to set that precedent that I'm available then. So please do keep that in mind. If your kids are emailing you questions, they're safe. They're with probably family members or people around them. They are physically okay. So just make sure that you're also taking care of yourself and that you don't have to be always on. You don't have to be attached to your email. You don't have to be attached to your computer. So please make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because teacher burnout and exhaustion is already a really big thing, and we can't have it exaggerated by this crisis and made worse because we feel like we always have to be available and connected to our students. So make sure that you take care of yourself. Try to shut off from time to time, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. With love.